Hi, my name is Kayla and I help small business owners with QuickBooks Online. In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with reports in this program in QuickBooks, but I'm also going to show you some other areas that are not on this page, but you might find just as helpful, if not more so. So I'll cover that. I'll also cover some key reports that really are helpful, really are useful, and I'll show you how to read those reports, what they are, in case they are helpful for you. Okay, so how did we get to this page? Go to the left menu, come down, click Reports, and then you will land on this page. Just in case you don't, you should be on the Standard tab, so that's where I am. All right, so we'll be on the Standard tab. They give you a lot of standard or default reports, a lot of choices. You probably don't need all of them, but you do have quite a few options to choose from. Plus, you can customize the reports, and I'm going to cover how to customize them coming up in this video. All right, so we're in the reports menu. I'm going to pick just an example report so we can cover the basics of just getting around to find the information that you need. So I've selected the sales by customer summary report, and we have the date range here. Now notice as we look at each row, we have this area here that gives us Freeman Sporting Goods, our sample customer. They have 2 locations and we invoice each location separately, but they're still all paid by Freeman Sporting Goods. So they're sub-customers, and the report shows them as sub-customers, giving us a total row. So total rows are going to be bolded in QuickBooks. If you were to try to export it into a spreadsheet, it might kind of bold everything, so keep that in mind. But in here, and also usually in the downloaded or printed version, it's just going to bold the total row, so that's good. Now let's say this is a little too much information. I just want to have one row for Freeman Sporting Goods. I can click the arrow and collapse it. So you can use these arrows to collapse or expand any section with a subcategory, or in this case, sub-customers. Keep in mind though, it's not going to print this way. So if you want it to look this way when it prints out, it's going to show you the fully expanded version. Just one quick tip though for workaround, if that's what you need, you could try exporting it to a spreadsheet and then just get rid of these sub rows, the ones that you don't need, so you just have the total or the rows that you do need. So you could try that in case that's what you need. Okay, so let's say we're viewing this report and we're examining the total. We're looking at the total sales for each customer by or during this time frame. Now, let's say that we notice an amount that we want to investigate a little further, and maybe it looks a little very high or very low, or we're just curious. So you can click on the amounts and it will give you all the transactions that are making up this total, that are with that total. But keep in mind, if you click on the row or click on the name, it's not going to go anywhere. You have to click on the amount, and then you can see the detail. So here is over on the left, it's easy to miss, but it is telling us this is the transactions or sales by customer for Cool Cars. And they're giving us the transaction type, the invoice number, the product or service. So here they're giving us columns that are specific to this report. So each type of report, if you're in some other report, the columns might be a little different. So it'll be the columns that apply to that report. But in this case, we only have invoices for Cool Cars, and that's the total sales or total of invoices for this date range. Keep in mind, though, something that is pretty important is, let's say that you just record sales for customers by deposits only. You don't actually create any invoice in QuickBooks. You just, it comes in through the bank feed and you just record it as a sale and it goes straight in as a deposit, even if you select that Cool Cars was your customer. So let me show you an example. Let's say I have this $200 deposit in the bank feed, and I say that the customer is Cool Cars and I'm selecting services income. That's going to go straight in as a deposit, so it's not actually going to appear in this report. It's not going to show up in sales by customer. So any report that has sales in the name, they're assuming you created an invoice or you created a sales receipt. If it went just in as a deposit, it's not going to show up here. So what if you have 5 deposits for cool cars? That's 5 deposits, 5 more sales, and that's missing from here. So just keep that in mind. This report is only going to be helpful to you if you actually create invoices or create sales receipts in QuickBooks Online. All right. Now, if that is a concern to you, you will see this show up if we just put in cool cars and categorize it as sales, or what did they have? Services. If you were to put this in, this deposit or this income or revenue will show up on the profit and loss report. It will be in some reports, but if it's a report with the name sales in it, it's most likely at this point, it's not going to show up. That might change, you know, it's a software, they do updates, that might change later, but as of right now, you're not going to see, you wouldn't see this in this as a report with the word sales in it. Okay, so just keep that in mind, but it is something like that would be in the profit and loss in some other reports. Okay, so back to this point. So we've looked at our cool cars invoices, and let's say everything looks good. If there's something that you want to check out a bit more, you can click anywhere on this row that is being highlighted, click on the row, and then that invoice or that transaction will open up. So you can make any changes or further review as needed. Okay, so, but in this case, we're going to go back to the report. So we looked at cool cars, everything looks great to us. So now we're going to scroll up and click this blue back to report summary link. Click the link. Do not click the browser back button. That will not get you where you want. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't take you where you want and it gets frustrating. So just click the blue back to report summary link. Click the back link, and then you'll actually get back to the report. Okay, so now let's say we reviewed this report, everything looks good, we've clicked into the amounts, everything looks good and we're happy with it, but we want to customize it. How can we customize it in QuickBooks Online? Well, you would know it usually by this point, but you have to scroll up. So if you click into report, it usually just comes right up to the title of the report, and you think this is all you have to work with. So very important, if you want to make any changes, scroll up, and then you have lots of customization options. The number one most frequently used option would be filtering the date range. And here, let's just say we want to look at last quarter. So we want to see sales by customer, but last quarter. Change it to the date range that you want, and then come over to the right and click Run Report. Then it will update and show you, okay, here's the sales for that particular quarter or whatever date range you selected. They give you a lot of preset date filters that can be really helpful, but in case what you need is not here, you can definitely do custom and just type in the date range that you need. All right, another choice that, let me come back to where we were. All right, let's do just this year. Okay, so again, we got to scroll up and then display columns by. This, you know, you may not need this, you may not need it all the time, but sometimes this can really become useful. Let's say that I don't want to just see the total sales for this date range. Maybe I want it broken down a bit. I want to know the total sales for each customer in this date range, but I also want to see a column for each month or each quarter, or a column for each product and service. This list will change depending on the report that you're in, so you can always just come over here, look at the options. But for this report, these are our choices. And I'm going to select, I want to see this year, but I want to have a column for each quarter. Click Run Report, and there we go. We have a column for each quarter, but we still have our total column. All right, so that can be very helpful. Again, you probably don't need that every day, but it can come in handy. Okay, so let me show you some other customization options that will help you at some point. And here, this choice, this is probably very important, especially when it's time to, you know, any really important reason, especially tax season. But this option here can be very important, cash or accrual. Which method does your business use? Now, it is you are not alone if you don't know which one you are. Just check with your accountant, find out which method is your business. Is it accrual or is it cash? Now, don't think that just because it says cash and you don't accept cash, well, then you can't be the cash method. It's not really about that. So you may very well be the cash method. So just check with your accountant, confirm which method that you are on, and then use that in the reports so you get the right information. So let me go back to the total only version. So in this case, I'll cover that more in detail in a future video. However, just a quick example of why it's important. Let's say we're using this report and we create invoices in QuickBooks. Well, if I say cash, QuickBooks is going to give me the sales for the date range I've selected. So in this case for this year, but they're going to go by the date that I said I received payment on the invoice. So let's say that there is an invoice to Amy's Bird Sanctuary in December of the prior year, but she paid in January. So that makes a big difference because I'm filtering this report for this time period. And if there's an invoice, if the invoice date is outside of that date range, then that's going to give you a different report. So let me show you an example. So here we've got these numbers. So look at these numbers, but then I'm going to change it to accrual. So right now they're showing me these are your sales based on the date that you said you received the payment. So when you record the invoice as paid, you marked it paid and you chose the date that you received the payment. They're using that date to give you the sales during this time frame. What if I change it to accrual? Notice how the total numbers might change. So we switch to accrual and then it changes. So now they're giving me the sales using the date of the invoice itself. So maybe you haven't even gotten paid for all of these invoices, but they're saying here are your sales for each customer based on the date of the invoice. So so that could be that could make a huge difference. So just keep in mind if you are cash or accrual, you might get a different answer depending on which method your business is on. So whatever method you are, stay with that. Okay, on the reports. All right, so let's keep going with customizing. You can customize with showing non-zero rows or showing all columns or all rows. So maybe you have more customers on your customer list, but right now they're just showing you the active customers or the customers that you have invoices with or there have been sales. So if there's a customer that maybe there's 0, they're just showing you the active customers, all right? But if you want to see all the customers on your whole customer list, sales or no sales, then you'd click all. Honestly, this doesn't get used very often, but just in case you need it, that is there. All right, the next field is to compare to another period. Now this I'm going to leave for another video, but if you need that option, if you need to compare to a previous year or period, or you need to see the percent of income, or in this case, sales, the percent of row or the percent of the column, then you can just check out those options, see if that's just to know that you have those options. But I'll go into more details in a future video. Okay, so let's run report again just in case. Yep, we're back to cash method here. Another option, so option 1 for customizing is this gray section. You can also, option 2 is the customize button on the right. All right, and the top section is usually the same as the gray section, but you can check that out in case you need it. If you want the numbers to look differently, you want the negative numbers to be shown in red, you have some options there. Here you can say, this is already what was in the gray section, but if I come down, there's this filter button. So honestly, this customize button, probably the #1 reason you would use this button is if you needed to filter. So let's click on this filter section, expand this, and here you can filter what's being shown on the report. So in this case, I'm looking at sales by customer for the year for this sample company, but maybe I don't need all that information. Maybe I just want to see, well, for a few customers. So I'll just click a few customers. So maybe it's only certain customers need to be included on this report. So I'll select those. And then as you can see, you could do it for maybe by product or service or by the payment method if you actually fill out that field. So you can filter by different choices. So in this case, I only want to see these certain customers. And now that's exactly what they're showing me. All right, so you can use the customize button to filter, plus some other options, but definitely to filter. One that's not really showing here would be which columns, kind of customizing the columns in the report. So, so there are other report types that give you a few more customization choices, but in this case, this is all they're giving us. You can also customize the header and footer. And this is more just in you preparing the report. If you need to send it to someone, you can customize it here as well. All right, the last really option of customizing the reports is probably the most overlooked one, but sometimes it really comes in handy, is right here. Easy to miss, but if you click sort, so let me take off my filter, and I could either go back to the customize button or right here, filters, get rid of that filter. Let's say that I want to sort. So right now they're giving us customers in alphabetical order. But let's say that I want to see total in ascending order. So then they'll give me lowest to highest. So you can sort in different choices. Again, this depends on the report you're in. You might get some more sorting choices if you're in a different report. Okay, and here you can also add notes. So let's say before you print this or download it or send it, you maybe need to add some footnotes to this report. So you just click add notes or edit notes, and then you can type what you want to say. And then you can just click out into some blank space. So I'm going to click out into the left area here, and then it puts your notes at the bottom. Something that they do, as you can see, is pretty close to the total row. So if you just want to click edit, you could do something like this. Just create a gap. There's whatever you need. And then you get some space. It's not right up next to the report itself. All right, when you download it, this little note will be here of the date that you prepared it, the method that you're using, the time. So that will be noted here as well, okay? All right, so these are customization choices. There are other different report types that will give you more choices, but for this video, this is really going to be these are really the most common customization features that you would be using. When you need to print it, you can come over here to the corner of the report. You can send it as an email from QuickBooks. And here, if you want to decide to print it or download it, it will give you a little preview. And here you can say, I want to email it. You just put in the email that you want QuickBooks to send it to. You can copy yourself, so you get a copy. You can save it as a PDF or you can print. All right, so that's usually how the reports look. And like I said, the total row will be bolded. All right, now let's say you don't want to download or print, you need to export. You want to export it to a spreadsheet. You want to export it to a PDF first, you can do that. And then this gear, this may not be what you need. And sometimes when you click on the gear in a different report, you might have more choices. But again, these options aren't as frequently used. All right, so that's how to customize the report, and that should be kind of plenty to help you in using the reports to customize it. But now I want to show you some other areas of QuickBooks that it's not really called a report, but it might be exactly what you're looking for. So if you're trying to find some information and thinking you have to go to reports, you may not have to go to reports. It might be somewhere else that you need. Okay, so for that, I'm going to change to the bank feed. So we're going to come back to the bank feed. And in case you're not sure where to go for that, you just come over on the left menu, go to the transactions menu, and then you can come to bank transactions. So if you have any bank accounts, credit cards connected, that will be this page. And what you can do is sometimes that really comes in very handy. It's not considered a report officially, but it is very practically helpful is to look at the register. So maybe you need to just look at, a good old-fashioned check register for your business bank account or your credit card. Well, you do have that in QuickBooks, and not everyone realizes that. So I want to make sure that I cover that today. If you come over to the very far right, it's very easy to miss. But if you come to the far right, it says go to bank register. So you can just click on that link and notice the blue box is for the checking account. So if I select this account and I click go to bank register, I'll be looking at the register for the savings. So you just first select the box for the register you want to see. So in our case, we're going to do the checking account. Come over to the far right, go to bank register. And there we are. We can see a register for this bank account. And usually it'll start with the most recent first. So you can click the date column right here. Click the date column, and it will flip it so that you have oldest to newest, if that's how you want to see it. Now I have covered that in another video on my channel as far as kind of working with this, but just for this video's purpose, just know that you might find the information you're looking for by just coming here if you just need to see that. For example, there is a report called transaction list by date. That might be very helpful for you, or transaction list by account. That's a report too if you just want to see a transaction list by the checking account. But practically, it might just be easier to just come to the register and look at the transactions listed on the register. So just know that you do have that choice. It is there. So how we got there was the bank transactions, and then we select the account we want and make sure that's blue, and then click on the far right, go to bank register. Another way to get there is the chart of accounts. So we're on the transactions menu on the left, then come over to chart of accounts. And then from your chart of accounts, your bank accounts and your credit cards, they're listed here. So you can find it and then click view register. So here's the checking, view register on the right. And here we are, there's the register. So a couple ways to get to that, but that might be really what you're looking for. All right, another place to find some useful information that's practically very helpful, but not on the reports page, is if we come over to the sales menu. So on the left menu, if you go to sales and you click all sales, well, then you can see your sales and you can see the activity, you can see what's overdue, you can filter for that. So that's something I have covered in a prior video, and I'll cover more in depth in a future video. But again, just know that you do have this option and don't feel like you have to use the reports menu for everything. You might find what you need right here. Okay, so there's a lot of things you can do on this page. You can also, so here's all sales, but maybe you want to look at, if you come up to the top, then you have just a list of invoices or just a list of estimates. So that might be very helpful for you. If you come over to the customers page and you click on a customer, I'm going to click on Amy again, and then under their name, come down, and then there's the transaction list. Well, in the transaction list here, we've got, if I just slide it over, here we have the transaction list. It's kind of like that all sales page, but just for this customer. So that might be really helpful for you. And you are able, really everything I'm showing you that's not on the reports page, you can still export it to a spreadsheet with the arrow symbol. You can still print it out. So, hopefully this will be really helpful in different situations that you run into. Okay, and just a similar thing with the customer page, you also have the expense menu. So if we look at the expense menu, you have a list of just your expenses. If you use the bills feature, you have that. If you come to your vendors page, you can do the same thing like with the customers. If you select a vendor, then you'll see the transaction list for that vendor. So just keep that in mind. Um, you might be able to find what you're looking for over here. Okay, so now let's head back to the reports menu, and I'm going to show you some key reports that might really help your business. So there's those other areas that I just showed you that you could find really helpful information, but there are some reports that are really useful and really helpful. So if we come here, we're going to start off in the favorite section. They give you a lot of, like I said, a lot of choices, but let's just look at really, really what I've starred here is going to be what I have in this favorite section. This is really going to be probably the most helpful reports to you, but it really depends on your business. So what if you don't do invoicing? Then you don't really need these reports. So, but these reports can be very helpful. And let's start off. I'm going to show you, I'm going to really focus in right now on the profit and loss and the balance sheet. So I'm going to go into that, just kind of do a little run through of looking at that report, but then I'll briefly look at some of the other reports that that you may not be aware of, and they might be exactly what you need. So I'll do kind of a quick review of those key reports. Okay, so here with the profit and loss, let's click on that. Again, you got to click on the name, not just the row. All right, and here we're at the profit and loss. Notice they just bring us to the top of the report. We scroll up, and then we have all our choices here. In this case, I'm going to keep it at this year to date. So that is the date range I want, but you can change that like we practiced. And with the profit and loss, now, of course, if you already know how to read a profit and loss, then you should be all set. But for those of you that aren't really sure or feel like you need a review or you're new to business, then definitely stick around, because this report is really pretty much the number report that's used in business, number one report used in business, and it can really help you. So the profit and loss report, it always starts off by showing your income or your revenue for your business within that date range. And keep in mind, if you're a cash or accrual business, then the report's going to look a little different. So let's switch it to cash, so it's just to be consistent. Okay, so here we've got our date range, and it always starts off with the revenue. But with the revenue, keep in mind this will be if you categorize any transactions to an income category, it will show up here. So even if you don't use the invoices with QuickBooks or the sales receipts, you just recorded it as a deposit, you'll see it here as long as you selected an income category. All right, and then here, like we already covered, this is a very detailed income list, a category list. So maybe I don't want to see all that right now. I just want to collapse some of the sections, and then I can see each income or service offered for this sample business. And then there's the total income for that date range. Again, same thing like we talked about. What if I'm curious? I want to look more of what is it categorized to design income? Just click on the amount. And once you click on the amount, then you can see what's included in there. Now, this is another thing to keep in mind. A quick note is at the top here, put switch to classic view. This is a recent update or upgrade. If you click switch to classic view, most people find it just easier visually to see, but I don't think that this classic view is going to stick around much longer. So while we have it, just click switch to classic view at the top so you can see it if you prefer this view better. All right, and same thing like I said, we got to come up to the corner and say back to report. Use the blue backlink, do not use the browser back. So blue back, and here we are back to the report, which is what we want. All right, so after our revenue, we get our total income. And so that's going to be the total income to the business for that time period, but then they give you a cost of goods sold section. What if you don't sell any goods? Well, then you probably don't have any cost of goods sold. You didn't have to purchase your goods in order to sell them. So you may not have, that may not apply to your business. If you're a service-based business, you probably don't have it. But if you do sell goods, then those direct costs, let's say you sell, I don't know, coffee mugs. So if you sell coffee mugs, you first have to buy the coffee mugs. And whatever it costs you to buy the coffee mugs, you'll categorize that here. So in this way, it's really nice because then they give you your gross profit. So that way you know, okay, after those direct costs, after just paying for the coffee mugs in order to sell them, then I have a profit of 54. So that really helps you to see what's happening. So there's your gross profit, or that's the profit that you have kept so far. So after buying those coffee mugs, that's your profit at this point, and as we read the report. Again, if you're service-based, you probably don't have it, but there are some service businesses that have some direct costs like, well, I'll let your accountant decide that for you because it can change. So I won't give too much examples in this video, but just keep in mind it may apply to you depending on your business. Okay, so here we have the gross profit. Then we have our other expenses, our operating expenses, because we can't only buy coffee mugs and stay in business, right? We have to maybe spend for some advertising, or maybe we have we have to rent some equipment, or maybe we have some professional fees, some business meals. Maybe we lease the space that you use for the business and the utilities for that space. So these operating expenses are listed after your gross profit. So here we have our total income. We subtract any direct costs, if any. You have your gross profit, and then you have your operating expenses. And then you can see, well, what were your total expenses in that time frame? So in this case, it was 3,000. We subtract the 3,000 from your gross profit. So gross profit minus your expenses leaves you with net operating income. So that's your profit, or the income that you have left after your operating expenses. Then you get to the final section. This can be called other income, other expenses, depends on if you had any. You may not have had any other income or other expenses. How do you know? So this is going to be, let's say you received credit card rewards on your business credit card. Well, that would be other income, and that should be at the bottom of this report. It should be in this bottom section because you're not really in the business. That's not the point of your business. You're not in the business of credit card rewards. That's not your main source of revenue. You sell coffee mugs, but you just happened to get credit card rewards, and you have to record that somewhere. So this was some other income that the business received. It goes at the bottom. Some examples of another one would be interest income. So interest income on a business savings account. That's not the point of you being in business, but your business happened to receive that. So you can put it in that bottom other income section. Some other expenses would be home office expenses if you work from your home office. Some other things would be some, like they're showing here, miscellaneous. It still has to be business, but it's some random one-off business expenses that just doesn't fit anywhere else. So you could put that here as well. Keep in mind, what's not here is anything personal. So there's nothing personal in this report. It is all business income and all business expenses are listed in this report. So after we take our net operating income, we're at 51,000 after subtracting our operating expenses. Then we had some miscellaneous other expenses. So we subtract that, and so we only had the 2,000 of other income or other expense. And when we subtract that, that leaves us with a net income or net profit of 48,000. So what does that mean? For this time period, your business has a revenue of 55,000, but after your costs, your operating expenses, any other income, any other expenses you have left. You got to keep 48,000 of those initial sales. So that's great. So if it were a negative number, it meant that you spent more money than you made. But in this case, you made more money than you spent. You had more income than expenses. So that's good. You have a profit left over. So that's awesome. Keep in mind, though, that you have the balance sheet. So on the balance sheet, some of this profit might have been spent over on the balance sheet. So that's really important not to forget that. So keep that in mind. If you're looking at the net profit, and let's say you have 100,000 in net profit, well, don't rush out trying to buy some more equipment and expand the business. Keep in mind your balance sheet might show some other things that you had to spend money on. So let's take a look at that. We come back to the reports. In this case, I'm going to actually go to the reports menu. And then I get back here. I have it on my favorite section. And then we have the balance sheet. So let's click on that. All right, now balance sheet. Notice that the date range is different. It's not a date range. It just says as of this date. I can change that date. I can say I want to make it as of 15th, and I want to make it cash on the cash method. So we click Run Report. But just keep in mind that the balance sheet, it's influenced by the past. So if anything is wrong or needs to be corrected or cleaned up in your QuickBooks, it's going to affect the balance sheet. The profit and loss, it's only going to show you that specific date range. So if you know last year needs to get corrected, but this year is all categorized correctly and it's all on track. So that'll be okay. Of course, you should still get last year fixed up, but your profit and loss, if you only filter it to show this year, then you can feel more confident in that report. But the balance sheet, if last year has errors, then this balance sheet may also have errors. Those errors are going to get reflected in the balance sheet. So that's something really to keep in mind. So it's just telling you how's the business doing as of the date that you selected. Let's look at just reading the balance sheet. What's even on the balance sheet? Because this one people aren't usually as familiar with. So with the balance sheet, first it lists the assets of your business. So anything that your business owns, so not you, it's not what you own, it's what your business owns. So any business bank accounts, any business checking, business savings, the balances are going to be here. So whatever balance you had, however much money you had in your checking account as of that date or on that date, that's going to show here. Now I picked kind of in the middle of the month. Usually the balance sheet's not like that. So let me pick kind of a round figure here. Okay, so here we have, as of the end of September, this is how much you had in the checking account. Savings is gone, notice, so maybe you just opened up the savings more recently, so it's not listed yet. All right, now we have some undeposited funds. With the undeposited funds, that just means maybe you've recorded an invoice as paid, but you haven't marked it as deposited. You haven't matched it to the bank feed, or you haven't actually deposited in the bank. You just marked it paid, but it hasn't actually hit your bank yet. So that could be the reason for this amount. It could, if it's a little unusually large, it could be a red flag that something needs to get cleaned up. So sometimes that's always a good place to check into if it looks off there. Okay, so here we have the assets of this business. Some other examples of assets for the business would be fixed assets. Maybe your business owns property. Maybe your business owns a vehicle or a few vehicles. Maybe your business owns equipment. Those are things that the business owns. If it's relatively inexpensive, that would just be an expense. It's not really an asset. So maybe you feel like your stapler, that's something that the business owns, but it's just, if it costs $20, then it's going to be listed as an expense over on the profit and loss. So if it is relatively expensive, then it's an asset of the business. I'm not saying an exact number of, well, if it's over, $2,000. I'm not giving an exact number in this video because you should check with your accountant what threshold to use whenever to decide what is an asset versus an expense for your business. So once you've spent so much, if you spent a few thousand, if you spent 10,000 on a piece of equipment, well, that's safe to say that's an asset of your business. Okay, so you can just determine what's the best threshold to use for your business. All right, so here we've got the assets of the business. So in this case, as of this date, the total assets of the business were $54,000. If you had any open invoices, that would be accounts receivable. So that would be listed here as well. I said you could list a vehicle on the assets, but it's got to be an asset owned by the business. It's not owned by you personally or owned in your own name. So that does make a difference. So just keep that in mind when you're deciding what should be listed here. Okay, so now as we come down, we have the liabilities. So does your business owe anything? Most likely you have a business credit card or maybe more than one. So the balance on those credit cards will be listed. They're going to show you the balance as of the date you selected. Maybe you have some loans. Maybe you have sales tax that you have to remit. Things like that are going to be listed here. Notice that this says a current liability. Current liability just means, are you going to pay what you owe relatively soon, usually within a year? If it's going to take you longer than a year, that's a long-term liability. So we would have another section. So this is current liabilities, then we would have a section under here called long-term liabilities. So maybe you have a loan that would be listed under long-term. Okay, so in this case, the business has $91.68 in liabilities. If you're wondering why these are negatives, if you overpaid, then it'll be a negative number. So if maybe there's a sales tax that you overpaid, you recorded how much you owe in sales tax, but you remitted a higher amount. So when you record all that or you categorize that, it's going to show you a negative. So negative numbers in liabilities means like an overpay. You paid more than what you owed. So that's where they're giving us a negative here. Okay, so when we take the 158, in this case, we're subtracting the fact that we overpaid. So that brought us to total liabilities of $91. The final section is equity. So this is basically the kind of showing the value of the business, the worth of the business here, but really in a practical sense, this is where you can list any owner investment. So any money that you've contributed to the business, maybe the checking account was running down a little low and you took money from your own savings to put it into the business checking account. Well, the category for that would be an owner's investment. So you invested or you contributed to the business. You would see that listed in the equity. Any money that you took from the business to pay yourself, this is not about you being on payroll. That's something different. So if you just took money from the business, that is a distribution. So you would see here an owner distribution or a member draw, things like that. That's going to be listed here. All right, if you have a partnership, the partner's investment, the partner's distributions, or the member draws, that's going to be listed here. Opening balance equity. This is purely for the software. It's not something that is really necessary for accounting. It's just here really to show that when you connected your bank account, you had 5,000. When you started tracking your bank account in QuickBooks, you had 5,000 in that was the bank balance when you first started. So that 5,000, QuickBooks is saying, well, where do we record that? That was just the balance when you started tracking in QuickBooks. So they just put it here, opening balance equity. All right, so that's just more for the software. Retained earnings, don't use this for categorizing. So don't use this to categorize, find something else, find another option, but let the software kind of manage this one. Basically, the point of retained earnings, it's going to show you the profit you made from prior years and over time. So if you've been using QuickBooks for 5 years, well, the profit that QuickBooks has been tracking for the last 5 years will be listed here. So that's the retained earnings, the earnings that your business retained from each year. Net income, that's the net income only talking about this year. So this was your net profit just from this year. Retained earnings is profit from prior years. All right, so that's showing us the equity that this business has $54,000 in equity or profit. Any distributions or draws, those would be negative numbers here. So it's going to show they're going to subtract that from the equity of the business when you take money out. Okay, so keep in mind as you look at the balance sheet, they're going to give you really the main structure of the balance sheet is showing you your total assets and your total liabilities and equity. These two numbers are supposed to be the same. So notice how they're both the exact same number. Total assets equals total liabilities and equity. That's the accounting equation, and that would be enough for another video as far as why are they grouping liabilities and equity. But it's just so that they're just trying to show that this number is the same as this number. Practically speaking, in QuickBooks, in the software pretty much always manages to make it the same number. So don't think that, oh, well, the numbers are the same. Things must be good. The QuickBooks must be correct and accurate. This number could be the same and your books could still have issues and inaccuracies. So you may still need to get things cleaned up, even if these numbers are the same, because QuickBooks kind of always makes sure it's going to be the same. So it's kind of hard to make it be a different number from each other. So just keep that in mind. That's not really a standard to show that you have clean books. You could have errors all through here, and then these numbers are the same. So just know if they happen to be different, it's almost impossible in QuickBooks for them to be different, but if they are, you definitely have something that you need to fix. All right, so that's the balance sheet. So we've got our assets, anything that the business owns, then liabilities, anything that the business owes, and then kind of the value or the worth of the business, and that will be subtracted by any money you've taken out of the business. All right, so that's that's what's happening on the balance sheet. But as far as for helping you with your business, the goal really is, and this for another video, we can get into more the details of analyzing a balance sheet and different metrics for the balance sheet. We can get into that in another video, but at least just for starting your business or just for today, really the point is ideally, or the goal should be that you have more assets than liabilities, which I know that seems obvious. Of course, you want to own more than you owe, and you don't want to be in debt. But just keep that in mind because a lot of people overlook this report, but this report will kind of show you what's happening with your business. How much do you have in your bank account? So as long as everything's accurate, being categorized properly, and you're reconciling, if you know you can rely on what the balance sheet's telling you and your books are accurate, then this can really be helpful to see, okay, how much do you have in assets? How much do you have in your bank accounts? How much do you have in open invoices? Because you did the work for those invoices, so that's an asset. So for accounts, that's not showing here, but you would have a row for accounts receivable for any invoices that are open or still need to be paid. So those things or any property you own, that's really good to see where does your business stand? What does your business own? So in this case, it's $54,000 worth of assets. Maybe you're looking to expand or get an investor. They're probably going to want to look at a balance sheet and your profit and loss, but they're going to want to look at the balance sheet to see, well, how much do you have in assets? And do you have huge loans? And do you have enough in assets to cover your liabilities? So maybe you have a loan, but then they see, well, you have a lot in assets. You have a lot in invoices. You have a lot in your bank accounts. You have a lot in inventory. Then they can see, well, you have plenty to cover these loans or the credit card balances. So then that would help them see that your business is, in a good position to grow or expand. All right, so keep that in mind as you're looking at this. You know, don't feel like you have to look at this every day, but it can be very helpful just to see what's going on and to help you make decisions, maybe to work on paying off some debt or increase your assets or see about changing how you take your distributions. If your distributions have been a little too high recently, you can see what's going on. But just do keep in mind this is over time. So let's say that you see your distributions and it says $4,000. That's going to be since you started using QuickBooks. It's going to be this year and prior years. So you can click on the amount just to see what's happening only for this year. So keep that in mind. If you come here and you get concerned and think, oh my gosh, there's a high number of distributions, that's going to be total. So if you've been using QuickBooks for 10 years, that's going to be all the distributions you've recorded for those 10 years. So it's going to, you know, kind of keep growing like that. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking at this and you get a little concerned, just click on the amount and then you can see what's listed there for this year only, okay? All right, so that's the balance sheet, and we covered the profit and loss, and they just give you so many reports. So you can go through each section. They give you some kind of general options, several types of profit and loss reports. They'll give you ones that are called summary reports or detail reports. So summary is kind of more what we've been looking at. They're showing you the total only, but the detail will show you, instead of you having to click into every amount to see what's inside of it, it'll just be listed the total and the transactions that make up that total. It'll be listed all right there for you. So you do have reports like that. Here we have accounts receivable reports, and that is anything to do with your invoices, anything. So again, if you're using invoices, then these reports will be useful to you. Sales and customer reports, you know, like I said, they give you a lot of choices. Let's say that you see a report that you use regularly. So in that way, just come here and click star, and then it will show up at the top in the favorite section. All right, so there it is. All right, let's come down. What you owe, so any accounts payable reports, that is all listed here. Any reports of expenses or vendors, that is listed here as well. Keep in mind, for vendor reports, that means that you've selected the vendor. So let's look back at the bank feed. Oops, here we go. Back on the bank feed, let's say that you categorize an expense and you just selected the expense category, but you never really used this field here. Then the vendor reports are not going to be very helpful if you never say, well, who was the vendor or who did you pay for that expense? So if you always skip this field, then the vendor reports aren't going to be helpful. But I do encourage that you use this field because then it makes QuickBooks more useful to you. There's more reports you can use, more information you can see and especially if you need to find something or fix something, it really saves a lot of time if as you go, you select the name of who you paid or who paid you. Okay, so those are just some of those sections of reports. You've got sales tax reports if you use the sales tax feature in QuickBooks. So if you do sales tax outside of QuickBooks, this is not going to help you. Employees, there's going to be payroll. If you have payroll, that'll be listed at the bottom. And then there's this section for my accountant. Some of these you might feel they might be a little confusing, but there might be some reports here that are very helpful to you. So don't write off this section. There might be some things here that you do want to use. All right. I have favorited here some of the key ones, and I'll unstar this. But here, before we get off, I do want to make sure I cover some things that sometimes get a little confusing for reports, but might be very helpful for your business. So I just want to make sure that you know exactly how to read some of these reports. So if you use the invoicing feature in QuickBooks, click on accounts receivable aging or AR aging summary report. This report really helps. It really helps with just visually seeing any overdue invoices, just how overdue are they. So visually, right away, we can see, okay, Red Rock Diner, they are 61 to 90 days overdue. So we should get on that. But then you've got these invoices are 31 to 60 days overdue. And then these invoices, they're only either 1 day, but up to 30 days overdue. So again, it could just be they're 1 day overdue and nothing of concern. But here you can at least visually see what's happening current. Here are the invoices that are just current. They are not overdue. Okay, so that may be very helpful. You can customize this up at the top, but this is pretty much the standard way of using the columns. And then you also have the totals. So Amy, 1 to 30 days overdue, and that's the total open invoices that you have with her. So paid invoices are not going to be here. Let's go use our blue backlink. All right, we have, we already looked at sales by customer summary. We have sales by product or service summary. And let's change our date range. Let's see, this year. And then here we can see all the products and services that we charge for on our invoices or sales receipts. They're going to be listed here, but then we can see how much you have your sales by each product or service. And then they'll tell you the percent of sales. So design services make up 42% of your sales for this particular date range. All right, so that can be very helpful. Again, you can customize it. You can filter it if you only want to see certain services or products. You can filter that. All right, and then the last key report I'll show you, but again, there's so many, you can just explore, click around, see any ones that might apply to you. But another one that can be very helpful, last one I'll show you, is expenses by vendor summary. So that one, again, by the date range, if you actually use the vendors, if you select the vendor for your expenses, then this report can be greatly helpful. It's sorted in alphabetical order, but it does show you how much you've spent or how much you've paid to that vendor in that date range. Again, change cash to accrual because that could make a difference on the numbers that you're seeing. Okay, so here I'm going to use the filter, just use some of what we talked about. And let's say I want to see this report, but only for certain vendors. And then here I have it filtered the way that I want, but let's say that I regularly need to see it this way. I need to see it customized exactly like this on a regular basis, and I don't want to keep changing the customizations every time. Come up here to the top right and click Save Customization. Click the green Save Customization. You can change the name of the report. And then you may not need this. Usually people don't need this, but just change the name of the report. So maybe you want to put year to date. And then click Save. Make sure you don't click the top save, click the bottom save. Click this save, and then the question is, well, where did it go? So if you need to get back to it, go to the Reports menu, come up to Custom Reports, and then it will be listed for you there. Keep in mind date range. This will keep updating. It's a rolling date range, so it will always be this year to date. So 5 years from now, it will be that current year to date. So if you want it to be a fixed dates, type in the actual dates, but you can use those preset filters so that it's always updating to be that date range. So maybe you want to see it for last quarter, it will always show you the report for the previous quarter. So that can be helpful, and you can change that. You can edit the name of it. All of that can be done over here in custom reports. And finally, management reports. This you may not ever need, but in case you need it, if you ever need to send reports or you need several reports in one PDF, or you need to send several reports in one file, then come over to the management reports and you can basically do that. You can create a report that lets you pick out the reports that you need, and it'll put it all in one file in one PDF. So let me preview this one. And see, we have 6 pages. They give you a cover page, table of contents, the reports that are going to be included, then the reports themselves, but it's all in one report or in one PDF. All right, and then you can also, after this, you can have an endnotes page as well for any endnotes to the reports that can be included as well. You can also include a executive summary page that can also be included as well. So in case you need that, it is there, but if you don't, just come back to the standard reports and pick out whatever applies to your business. All right, so I hope that helps. These are things that I covered. I know it was kind of a longer video, but these are questions that I get asked, and from the clients that I work with, these questions come up a lot. They're frequently asked questions, or questions that I realize that a lot of people don't know, and I show them and they realize, oh, I wish I would have known about it. So that's really what I'm covering in this video. So I hope that it helps you, and of course you can come back to this video and jump to the section that you need the most for reference. All right, so I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.